have your own cryptocurrency? Welcome to the Block List. I'm your host, Emily Klein, and today's featured interview is with Greg Magarshak, founder of Qbix and Intercoin. Before we get started, please go ahead and subscribe to our content and find us on Patreon. Let's get to the interview. So, can you provide our audience with an overview of your company, Qbix?
Yeah, sure. Sort of going a little bit back, I started Qbix in 2011, and we had this idea that, all these social networks out there, Facebook, Twitter, everything was centralized. So what that means basically is that, people have to put all their data, all their brand identity, everything into one company. And that also attracts advertisers. That also attracts NSA, spy agencies. So wouldn't it be nice if you could just host your own identity and your own social network as a community for your own members? So that's kind of what we built. We've been around for 7 years. We put out some apps that have over 5 million downloads, actually, in over 110 countries. So it's been a pretty exciting ride. And that's what brought us to all this other stuff that we're doing.
That's really cool. So our viewers may not know this about you, but you are an incredibly talented and highly intelligent individual. So you started as a concert pianist as a child and attended college at 14, which is crazy. So how did your past prepare and inspire you to create Qbix?
Good question. Well, I had pretty ambitious parents, as you can tell. I think I played in Carnegie Hall. I did all these concerts as a kid, and that kind of taught me that things that people normally consider, very out of this world and hard to achieve are actually possible if you just work at it systematically and have the right connections and you get the stuff done. So I think over time I kind of gravitated towards building stuff, and I really enjoy sort of building apps and things that help people. So for me, it was like I wrote a symphony, let's say, that orchestra would play, right? And now I use a different keyboard to create an app that everyone uses. And for me, hearing a symphony is nice, but an app can actually help change things, like Steve Jobs, with the iPhone. That's kind of my passion now.
That's really cool. That's really cool. So how does the work that you do at Qbix put you at the intersection of technology, group dynamics, and politics?
Oh, man. That is exactly sort of the intersection that I've been living in for the last few years. So Qbix, before we even started Intercoin, which was the sort of the spin-off project now that helps communities make their own currency, even before that, you can imagine making a platform that people use to decentralize social networking to help members connect without needing like this giant server farm or this giant thing, has political connotations too. If people can recover after a disaster on their own without waiting for FEMA, right? Or if, they can run their community sort of locally, matchmaking, dating, marketplace, a lot of that sort of made me realize there's a lot of value to decentralizing power structures because a lot of time the central power structure, there's benefits, but the drawback is it's out of touch with the needs of people, and you have things like in the USSR, they had the Ukraine Holodomor, which was like starvation. And that also came out of the fact that it's hard to plan exactly how everything's supposed to work centrally. It's much easier if the community has more power to govern itself. So I think that, and just all these ideas of like, but what if you start your own club? And then in the beginning, it's your club, right? But then it gets bigger than you. People start relying on you. There's a politics of that. How do you transition from being, a single owner dictator to sort of now having the club being sort of taken away from you and becoming a public thing, possibly. So all these things, transitions, things we have to deal with building Qbix platform.
Very nice. So what are your views on cryptocurrency?
Oh, man. I think cryptocurrency is a revolution, but not in the sense that most people think, at least that I've heard. For me, it actually boils down to something very simple. cryptography allows systems where you cannot mess with the system. It's very hard and feasible. It'll take you millions of years to just reverse one thing, right? Little thing. That to me is the biggest draw, whether it's, the Bitcoin blockchain or whether it's Monero privacy or whether it's like the IOTA, Tangle or the stuff we came up with. It's just security, right? It's just consistency, being able to rely on a system to do what it says it's going to do. Because if you think about before, right, with the web even, with the web, you visit a server and you have to trust that server. And we've seen so many leaks. We've seen, what is it now? Like every other month. Just recently, the Yahoo breach is like 1 billion users. Then there's like 120 million households in the U.S. compromised with credit agencies. And then Equifax leak. So it would be nice to have security and assurance that that doesn't happen. And once you have that, it opens up doors to, decentralizing, because now it's sort of like everyone's keeping each other honest with cryptography. So you could have maybe money that's permissionless. And what that means is no one can stop me from paying you, and no one can reverse that transaction. Sometimes that sounds kind of scary, right? Because it's buyer beware, right? But also, it has that aspect that you can trust that the transaction went through, right? On the other hand, and there's no chargebacks, there's nothing like that. You can build chargebacks, you can build that sort of assurance on top of non-reversible transactions, but you can't do it the other way around. So it's nice to have that base of secure, maybe permissionless transactions that now anybody can use, and I think that also has aspects of freedom in it. So that's what I like about the crypto world.
That's great. So where do you think the future of cryptocurrency is headed? Any government intervention?
Well, there's certainly already been a lot of government intervention. One thing governments can't do is mess with the cryptography. That's kind of funny, even the top level, NSA groups, right? And basically, you can do, okay, that do all this kind of stuff. They engage in putting backdoors in your favorite operating systems, possibly. Okay, we don't know. But one thing that we sort of pretty sure about is that the cryptographic protocols that have been adopted, also by governments, by the way, National Institute of Standards and Technology, NIST, all these new crypto standards are being sort of adopted. There's competitions. Academia submits this, and we use the best stuff. So governments are involved also in moving things forward, right? Like they did, let's say, with the Silicon Valley. Steve Blank has this history of Silicon Valley, which actually grew up. A lot of government money and contracts went in there. Now we have computers, CPUs. So the same thing with cryptography. Academia participates in these DARPA challenges and all this stuff. And so governments are involved, but also what they can do, though, is be involved in the people level, right? They can, for example, this year, I don't think it was intentional, but the Republican bill made it so that when you trade cryptocurrencies, it's a taxable event. And that's something new this year. So that means, you can subtract your losses from your winnings, but at the end of the year, you have to pay on your capital gains. It's like a casino. You're like playing a poker hand. So governments are involved, and every time the government of China cracks down on ICOs or something like that, it reverberates in the markets. I think this is a new space. I think government regulators are just as interested as anyone else to develop sort of regulatory frameworks around it, just like programmers are interested to develop apps around this stuff. I don't know what the next 5-10 years is going to hold, except to say that the blockchain as a drop-in security replacement is going to become a big thing. In other words, when you used to trust a server, now you just have a bunch of servers run by companies that don't know each other or don't trust each other, but they can now trust this sort of algorithm and the security. I think that will be the big revolution. And with Intercoin, there's a bunch more stuff that we're building too.
Yeah, so you keep mentioning Intercoin. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. Intercoin is sort of the brainchild of my 10 years on Facebook being wasted, I thought. Economics,
Yeah.
I have so many friends, libertarian friends, liberal, conservative, all kinds, right? And everyone has their own view on what should be, right? Social democrat, tax, and so forth. And I thought I was just wasting my time for 10 years, and finally it paid off.
Good.
We looked at the crypto world, and we saw the same problem that we saw at Qbix, which is that we have these monolithic global networks, right? Even though they're kind of decentralized, in the sense that no one controls them, they're still one network. What that means is, for example, if I pay for coffee in a coffee shop and someone buys a house in France, so they all go on the same ledger, right? It's a never-ending growing ledger of all transactions that have occurred everywhere. And so the result is it's hard to scale that because, let's say Bitcoin now, you have to wait 30 minutes, that's by design, for the transaction to be approved. And also, you have to pay $25 to $30 at this point. And that's a market, emergent thing. And why is that? $25 to pay for coffee and also 30 minutes? Because, well, the $25 is because you have this arms race of proof of work. There's more hash rate here, now there's more hash rate here. So just like with armies, eventually it gets centralized in a few mining pools, and then they act naturally as a cartel. They raise their prices. They say, okay, well, we're going to be the ones accepting your transactions, so you better pay us. And as the mining rewards go down, and Bitcoin's going to be reducing them by half in a few years, the fees are going to probably go up. Again, all this is happening because there's a central one network, and it's expensive to put everything in there. But you don't have to put everything. For example, if I buy coffee in New York and someone buys a coffee in Paris, there's no reason why my buying coffee in New York should go on that same ledger as the Paris one, right? So that's sort of, if you separate, right, and you let each community, just like with Qbix, run its own blockchain, right, its own payment network, you get so many cool possibilities. All right. First of all, you can give cities the opportunity, right, or universities, right? You can give students the ability to buy books and that meal card. It's sort of that thing.
Yeah.
You issue your own currency. So casinos had chips, right? Some towns actually have their own currency now, like Bristol pounds. Yeah.
Which is great for tourism.
It's great for tourism, and the currency, it stays within the community. Because no one wants to take that $1 million chip outside of the casino to their home because it's worthless out there.
Yep.
Okay. So these communities, they retain control of their currency, and then you get a lot of interesting things. Let me give you a few more examples, like where community currency could work. Netflix pays out content creators, right, for movies. And whenever I watch a movie, that's one vote, one signal, right, that I want to do like a micro payment to everybody. Now, Brave browser is a new browser by Firefox CEO, former CEO, actually, Brendan Eich, right, or Eich, I don't know how to pronounce it. He started a new company, and their token, Brave Basic Attention Token, sold out in about 30 seconds, I think. ICO was done. What that token does is it tracks the micro payments, okay, between the people watching a website and the people publishing the website. So with Netflix and with that basic attention token, all this stuff could be communities with their own token, right? I could have a community of, I don't know, mathematics, right, teachers, and I could do micro payments. So again, because that's community has its own currency, I don't have to look for double spend in the whole world. If I pay this creator, I know that it's within this community, right? So I cash in, kind of like I'm paying Netflix $7 a month, and then I don't know how much it is now. It could be like $7.99. Probably going to go up. But I pay that large payment, right? And then the micro payments are done within the community, and then the content creator aggregates all those and cashes out every month also. So putting money in, taking money out, and the local community doing the micro stuff, that's an example of community currency. Another example is ICOs. Now, ICOs right now have been done with Ethereum. Ethereum is called the world computer. It's a global, global sort of network that runs smart contracts. And so you can make your own coins, tokens with it. But again, the problem is it's slow, right? If you want to make like multiplayer chess on this or anything, forget like a video game, like real-time action, like Warcraft, you can't. This thing is more for like, a step is done, and then all computers in the world have to make sure that it's been done, and then there's consensus. We think we could do better. Again, for example, with ICOs, smart contracts, we're going to talk about in like a few years from now. But if you have a local currency, that is an ICO. Okay, if you invent a new drug, okay, and you hire people and you do clinical studies and everything, people want to donate to you, walkathons. People might want to invest in you, like investors in drugs. So now, again, money goes in. They see how the money is being spent within that economy, and then later, it could be redistributed according to some rules. That's where smart contracts comes in. Again, you don't need a global world computer where everyone runs the same smart contract. It's just here's the community, and the blockchain is the big thing. So that's what we do. Blockchains for everyone. It's like you want to start a blog, you download WordPress, and you have your blog. You want to start your own social network, you get Qbix platform, you got your own social network. Now you want your own currency, you download Intercoin software, the community kit, you have your own currency. We take care of are you a money transmitter? Should you register as a money transmitter? What are the tax implications? Stuff like that. And finally, what I want to say is, look, a lot of these already exist, like PayPal, WeChat. The most success was when you take a social network and you add it on top of the money layer on top of social. Because, if no one accepts the currency, it's worthless. But if everyone has the social app, then it's worth it. Like if you told me I'm going to PayPal you the money, I have to get PayPal. But if I already have PayPal, right, it could go round and round inside PayPal with no fees.
Right.
And that's sort of the vision of Intercoin, is that everyone has their own local community with no fees, and you cash in and you cash out with Intercoin.
That's really cool. That's really interesting, and I can't wait to see how everything grows and, how everything goes in the future for you. It's so fantastic. So what advice do you have to those that are just getting into the world of cryptocurrency?
Oh, wow. Do you mean as investors, or do you mean as technologists building stuff?
Maybe a little bit of both, because I know that we'll have a mix of audience members on this platform. So. All
right. So if you are someone who, has been saving money with 0% or 0.1% interest in your bank account, you've probably been drawn to invest in something else. And I think, there's a lot, there's been sort of an asset bubble. Now, I don't know how much of it is a bubble and how much of it is actual fundamentals. But obviously, if you look at the stock market boom for the last several years, or the crypto boom, people are putting money into alternative assets besides their bank, right? And that's a result of low interest rates. So these interest rates are going to be going up gradually. And I think you're going to see actually a pullback in a lot of the markets. And I'm saying this as a guy doing ICO. I'm saying that these markets, you're going to see sort of like in the 90s, where you had trillions of dollars invested in, .coms, right? And the web. And some things that came out of it are incredible, like Amazon, right? Amazon came out of the .com boom, and it's still around, and it's a huge company, and its CEO is the richest man in the world. So if you have the right fundamentals, look at the project, right? If it has enough fundamentals, it's going to survive long term. Short term, though, a lot of these ICOs happen before the company is mature. When you had IPO, the company at least already had the product, they built it, they had customers, they proved it out. With these ICOs, the product is the token, and a lot of the time the token is still being tweaked or whatever. So the main signal for the markets is really news. It's the news cycle, and you look at throughout the year, there's different currencies that get hyped. and some of that is organic, some of it is paid, right, and arranged. Um, if you're an investor, I think you should look at the news as the primary signal and be like, what's likely to generate a lot of news? All right. So Intercoin, I mean, I'm not going to plug the, what we're going to do too much this year, but let's just say
no worries.
You're going to hear about it. Hear about this, hopefully. Yeah, and so it's a function of news. Every time there is a lot of positive news that comes out, there's an uptick. You could also listen for negative news. And if you're on one of those exchanges where you can short, that's a good thing. If the whole crypto world starts going down for a few days, like recently with China and South Korea putting the hammer down, you could try tethers, which are basically sort of this scheme of representing dollars in the crypto economy. So get into tethers for a while. Tethers might go up to 1.5. But yeah, I would say that's my advice. People getting in as investors. As far as entrepreneurs, I would say, look, wait a year. You can use, build your stuff, but look into Intercoin, because you could just build your ICO on top of Intercoin. Just download it. Boom, you have your own currency, and then you just sort of link it up to the Intercoin network, and people can just put money in there and get money out of there. And you could set your own rules, like you lock it up for 6 months before they can trade, right? They can trade with each other. And so if you have a project, you don't need to be a technologist. You could be a drug researcher. You could be an artist, right? You could be a school. And you can launch your own currency to, it could be a church, a synagogue, a cruise ship. And so there's many reasons why you'd want your own currency. And one of the reasons is fundraising. So it would be super easy if people just be like, okay, donate, done, right? Mm-hmm. And then they will see how the money is being used, not in individual people, but aggregate. Like if I'm a donor to Harvard, right, I can see the students, like Harvard can give every student their own $5 a day, and they can use it in the cafeteria and books, and everybody sees that this is how much was spent, and it's in the economy. Or there could be a disaster area, and you want to, for example, airdrop money to everybody instantly, and then let them decide how to spend the money. You could just do that with Intercoin, right, if they had their own currency already. So that's sort of the idea. I would say as a technologist and as an entrepreneur, go to intercoin.org and download this thing, play around with it, and sort of see if you don't have to reinvent the wheel, because we've kind of been working on this wheel for a while.
Well, thank you so much for all of your time and for participating in this interview. We've definitely enjoyed having you.
Thanks for being on. Thank you, guys.
Thanks.